The collective emotional dynamics of this war are so interesting that I've kept thinking about them, and therefore I thought I must make another video. Now, I was watching, I wanted also to say that of course these are my hypotheses. I'm not making like scientific affirmations, although I am a doctor in philosophy, but I'm not doing this kind of research. I'm just saying what I feel that could be true. And I'm open for discussion, of course. Now, lately I really love watching Owen Jones, who is a journalist and historian, and he makes amazing videos. And I saw a conversation in somebody else's program, because he has his own YouTube channel, Owen Jones. He was in conversation with somebody who was pro-Israeli. And this person asked him, why are you so passionately defending Palestinians? You're not Palestinian yourself. And he was appalled. He was appalled. And he was saying, well, because I'm human. Yeah? I haven't lost my humanity. And I think that this is very interesting as well as a dynamics, as a collective emotional dynamics of what's happening to Israelis, or to a great part of Israelis, of Israeli Jews, that have lost their humanity. And therefore this person, whom I don't remember his name, he was asking Owen Jones because he couldn't understand that Owen Jones could support the oppressed. He couldn't understand it. So he can't understand that we're all connected. Probably the people who support Israel, first of all, haven't read the history, because that's absolutely the thing, because I actually have discovered as well, I mean, this is again a hypothesis, that those who support Palestinians are the ones who read the whole history, are the ones who read everything, even both sides of the press, and are the ones who read the most and who check instead of just blindly believing something, yeah? Whereas those who support Israel tend to be those who just blindly believe, yeah? Anyway, I go back to this thing of not understanding why we support Palestinians and why we support the oppressed, yeah? The thing is that when you are connected to yourself and to your own emotions and your own needs, and you're really connected to yourself, you will be immediately connected to other people's emotions and needs and suffering, yeah? Because you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow yourself to feel, and you look at your emotions, and therefore you discover your authentic needs, because your authentic needs are not a huge power and a lot of money, yeah? A little power and money we do need, but these are not authentic needs. These are substitutes, yeah? So when you live your whole life substituting your authentic needs, of which the authentic needs, you can just check out the lists of emotions and needs of the nonviolent communication. It's beautiful because there are all the human needs, all the authentic human needs, yeah? And one of these is connection to others, yeah? And through other people's pain, by our empathy, we connect to others, because we are all connected. And that is why we can actually do something about all this. And this is why I'm doing these videos, but I'll talk about that later. Now, the fact that they are not connected to themselves. No, so when they can't understand why we support the oppressed, it's because they cannot feel empathy, yeah? And why can't they feel empathy for others? Probably because they can't even look at their own pain, at their own shit, and their own vulnerability. And therefore, they don't know what empathy is because they don't have empathy towards themselves. Yeah. So, yeah. Then another very interesting and important issue, which which comes from this thing of supporting the oppressed or supporting the winners, yeah, or the powerful. Yeah, that's another thing. No? So somebody who doesn't understand why we support the oppressed might be because they prefer to support the powerful because then they feel powerful as well. Yeah? They feel that the successful and the powerful, instead of protecting the underdogs, because then you're an underdog yourself. Yeah? So this is another interesting dynamic. Yeah? But of course, the power dynamics, as Foucault said, have to be reversed in order to create knowledge in both parts. So Michel Foucault, really, and very important, if you don't know who he is, please go and read Power and Knowledge, for example. Anyway, Foucault says that the power generates knowledge and the knowledge generates power. Yeah? They are connected. Power and knowledge are connected. And he talks about institutions in the past, and the institutions were the ones who held the power, and they wanted to always hold the power. So they would impose their power on individuals, and this happens still, yeah? They would impose their power on individuals so that the individuals would always have to obey, yeah? And therefore, they would always keep the power and the knowledge, yeah? But Foucault and Judith Butler says that Judith Butler, who is alive, but Foucault is not, and Judith Butler supports Palestinians. Judith Butler and Foucault said that in order to produce knowledge on both sides, the power roles have to be reversed and the power dynamics have to be reversed. And this is exactly what I was talking in my previous video about the fact that there has to be resistance, and that if you are healthy, you resist to occupation, to illegal occupation. Yeah? So, and actually international law allows even armed resistance to resist occupation, especially when it's illegal occupation, because Israelis' occupation on the occupied territories, on Palestine, is illegal also because it lasts since ages, since decades. Yeah. So going back to the power dynamics, so I was talking about the fact in my previous video, now I have forgotten, but anyway, the thing is that Israelis have a lot of power, a huge amount of power, a huge amount of money, because they receive billions and billions from the US, yeah, and huge amount of arms and and they control everything, so they have the huge power, and they impose the power on people who are powerless, yeah, because let's face it, Hamas, I mean, what arms do they have? They have rudimentary arms. They don't have huge weapons, yeah? So it's armed resistance. It's not terrorist. And actually, Israel is a terror state, yeah? That is state terrorism. So, to me, for instance, no, if somebody asked me that question, that why do you support Palestinians when you are not Palestinian yourself, and I actually don't know Palestinians myself, I've been studying and listening and connecting, but only recently. But yeah, perhaps I do have Muslim roots because my family comes from Andalusia, so forcibly we have Muslim roots, and I had already discovered my Jewish roots by working on my book about Jewish Holocaust survivors, to Hell and Back, meeting Jewish people, they told me that Nunez is probably a Sephardic Jewish name. And I found out that yes, we were coming from Jewish, so converted Jewish, called Marranos, because in fact there was the Inquisition. So in order to stay and not to leave, my family converted to Christianism. But of course, having lived for ages in Andalusia, for sure we have Muslim roots, and I do believe that part of this is my Muslim roots calling, but another part is just humanity. It's just that we are all connected. I am connected to the oppressed. I am connected more to the oppressed than to the oppressor, of course. And when I was working on my book on the Holocaust survivors, I was connecting to the Jewish oppressed who suffered from the Holocaust. So I always connect more to the oppressed than to the oppressor. Although, of course, I always have to look at my shit and see if I am actually oppressing somebody or not, if I am using my power on somebody or not, and how do I use my power, the little power I have, of course. So the power dynamics must be reversed. And yes, there was a very interesting report called the Goldstone Report, which was there to study and to make a report about the operation Cast Lead by Israel on Gaza, which was similar to what's happening now, but not so bad as what's happening now, And Goldstone, a Jewish, even Zionist, from South Africa, I think, he says that the goal of Israel in Operation Cast Lead, but it has been for decades the same thing, was to punish, humiliate, and terrorize. And it said as well that Israel wanted Palestinians very vulnerable and dependent. And it's interesting because in my previous video I was saying that actually it's the Israelis who are blocked by fear, frozen by fear, and all their actions are guided by their fear, and that Palestinians tend to be fearless, although of course they're afraid of what's happening now and always, but they tend to be, the more violence they use on them, the more they make the dying become the martyrdom and something sacred, something sacred like the struggle for freedom, and the less fear, So it's interesting that they want to terrorize, and actually Ariel Sharon was saying, our main weapon is the fear of us. And so they're always talking, Israel is always talking about their capacity for deterrence, causing fear on their victims, So that's what they want, causing fear, And that's what happened on October 7th, that they, because they were so afraid, what they want with this unprecedented offensive on Gaza is to terrorize Palestinians, But in fact, they're not making it. Of course, yes, they terrorize, but in fact, these people have lost everything, and except this indomitable will of the Palestinians for freedom. They are incredibly powerful in the end. So no amount of propaganda will blind us. So if you get informed, and please get informed, and please look at Democracy Now!, please look at Owen Jones, take it to the streets, of course. We have to take it to the streets because we cannot tolerate what's happening with international support. We cannot possibly tolerate what's happening. But also, I invite you to look at your own shit and to look at your own conflicts and to look at your own vulnerability and to show yourself vulnerable, to do exactly what Israel and the United States and the Western governments who support them that they don't do, they never do, to show themselves vulnerable, you know, and not try to humiliate and terrorize, but quite the opposite, to empower other people by looking at your own shit, at your own part in the conflict, yeah, by looking at your own vulnerabilities and showing yourself vulnerable, you know, because that is the way to connect with others, you know. And if you want, you know, what I do, with SPEX, what I do is a method to do all this, you know, in order to empower yourself by looking at your vulnerability and your shit, you know, in order to address conflict and solve the conflict, because you are working on your own emotions, you're working on your own authentic needs, and therefore you are connecting deep inside with yourself, and therefore you'll be able to connect with others deep inside, to be empathic towards yourself and towards others, you know, and to solve all conflicts that you have, you know. And because we are all connected, and this is the society of avoidance, and Israel is one of the greatest examples of avoidance, because they totally avoid looking at their own shit, at their own part in the conflict, by pretending that they are only the victims, you know, and they are avoiding showing themselves vulnerable, you know, they are absolutely avoiding everything, and that's what makes them weak, you know, because if you don't avoid all your shit and all your problems and you addressed everything, yeah, you become powerful, you become strong inside, you don't need so many weapons, you know. So, since we live in the society of avoidance, the more people that look at their own shit and then look at their own vulnerabilities and address conflict, the more people who do that, the more we're going to win this battle. Yeah? So apart from taking it to the streets, which I really invite you to do in your city, go every weekend. There are demonstrations pro-Palestine and ending the genocide. Take it to the streets, but do your own homework within yourself to look at your own shit and to look at your own vulnerabilities. Yeah? And I'm going to, there's a SPEX workshop starting September, so you can enroll in my workshop if you want to learn how to do this and empower yourself, you know, by looking at all your emotions, expressing all your emotions, transforming your emotions into art, looking at your images and accept them and see your vulnerabilities and your strengths together in one single image, and make your own autobiographical project to make a homage to your lived experience, you know. And when your vulnerabilities become strengths, that's what we do, yeah. So, yeah,